I remember the day I walked out of that office in Bristol like it was yesterday. I'd been working at the Regional Environmental Agency for 5 years, handling compliance checks for manufacturing plants. I was the kind of person who believed in rules, who thought regulations were there to protect people, not just make paperwork look good. My boss, Karen Dipshit, didn't see it that way. She treated the rules like a game, bending them to get results. I tried to stop her once, twice, and then a third time when she nearly got us fined for poisoning a local river. I'd written down every instance, every time she cut corners and sent them up the chain of command. The response: "This is the way it's always been done." So I quit, not because I was scared, but because I couldn't be part of something that endangered lives. I moved to a different state, got a job enforcing regulations, and tried to forget the past. But 5 years later, fate had other plans. The call came on a Tuesday, the kind of Tuesday that starts with a coffee and ends with a headache. My manager said the state was launching an investigation into Karen's company, a factory that had been getting complaints about toxic waste. They needed someone to dig through her records, and they wanted me. I didn't say anything at first, just stared at the coffee cup in my hand. I'd been trying to forget that woman, but apparently she'd been trying to forget me too. I told them I'd be there in an hour. The office wasn't the same as it used to be. The walls were quieter, the air less smoky, and the people more focused on their work. I'd been here for 3 years, and I'd never felt more like myself. I'd built a life here, a career that made sense, and I wasn't about to let some old grudge ruin it. But when I walked into Karen's office, I couldn't help but feel the same mix of anger and fear I felt the day I quit. She was still there, still smiling like she owned the place, still pretending she didn't know what I'd done. I spent 4 weeks going through her files, and every day I found more proof of what she'd done. She'd been using the same shortcuts she'd used 5 years ago, ignoring safety protocols, falsifying reports, and putting the community at risk. I kept a notebook, writing down every violation, every time she'd lied to the authorities. By the end of the week, I had a list of fines that would make her business bleed. I didn't need to prove it to anyone else. Karen had already proven she wasn't fit to run a business. But I couldn't just hand them over. I needed to make sure she understood what she'd done. I needed to make her feel the same fear I'd felt when she'd threatened me. I started by training her staff, showing them how to do the job properly, how to follow the rules. They were grateful, and I could see the same look in their eyes that I'd seen in my old colleagues when I'd finally stood up to Karen. It was surreal, like I'd gone full circle. The day I handed her the final report, she didn't even flinch. She just looked at me like I was some kind of stranger. "You're not going to ruin me," she said, her voice calm, like she knew I wouldn't, but I had a plan. I'd spent years building this, and I wasn't about to let her walk away without paying. The next morning, I called the state regulators and gave them everything I'd found. I didn't need to prove it to them. Karen had already made it easy. They came in the afternoon, and when they walked into the factory, the air felt different, like the weight of years of lies was finally lifting. Karen didn't fight them, didn't even try to argue. She just stood there, her face pale, her hands trembling. I didn't say anything to her. I didn't need to. She knew what she'd done, and she knew I'd made sure she couldn't hide behind her old tricks anymore. I left the building before the meeting ended, my head clear, my heart lighter than it had been in years. I hadn't just taken down a corrupt boss, I'd made sure the people she'd hurt were protected. Now I sit at my desk, looking at the report I'd written, and I feel a sense of peace. I've built a life here, a career that matters, and I've made sure that no one else has to suffer the way I did. Karen's company is under investigation, and I know she'll face the consequences of her actions. I didn't need to exact revenge in the traditional sense. I just needed to make sure the system worked for the people, not the people who tried to break it. I close my eyes and take a deep breath. The past is behind me, and I'm finally at peace with the choices I made. I didn't need to seek revenge to feel whole. I just needed to make sure the world was a safer place for everyone. And for the first time in years, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm meant to be.